So I had a debate last night where we talked about this quite a bit. So it's a little bit fresh in my brain here. But this is going to get subjective pretty quickly, I guess, because it's primarily a moral topic. So if you just don't give a shit about morality, then you may just say, who gives a shit? Who cares? But the thing about is that since we've had two really huge revolutions happen in a very short period of time, relative to the rest of human history, things have changed really quickly, and it's hard to quantify that. So the first thing that changed was feminism. We've had just over a century of feminism here in the West, as far as it being like a pervasive political ideology. 100 years of that compared to several thousand years of human history, we've completely turned the social order inside out. There's nothing else you can look to that has produced so much change in a short period of time. Everything from economics to family life to how companies are run, to ads and marketing, entertainment is now has been completely changed by feminism. We also had a technological revolution, which made it possible for the first time for every single person to basically become a porn actor or a sex worker via the exact medium we're on right now. If you have a webcam on a $200 laptop, you can have an OnlyFans now. So to me, I think that a lot of people could argue that it's actually made things safer, but when you look at evidence of what this is doing to people, you can look at things like how pornography can rewire and affect people's brains. It can become a very hardcore addiction. They've done several studies on this where they found that something like 90% of American men have viewed pornography within the last month. And we have a 2012 study from, I think it was the University of Heidelberg and the London School of Economics, that looked at 116 countries and compared their laws for sex work to human trafficking. And they found that to the extent that you legalize sex work, it actually increases the inflow of human trafficking in that country. And then they also found that to the extent you criminalize it, you reduce human trafficking inflows. Specifically in Sweden, they actually criminalized sex work and found that it reduced human trafficking. So I know that a lot of people like to argue that you have to make everything legal, and then that will keep it from becoming a black market, and then we can regulate it, and then we can make it safer. This is something where that doesn't necessarily apply. When we do studies, we find that to decriminalize sex work actually increases human trafficking. It makes it easier for the entities that conduct human trafficking to get into that nation, get into that country, and conduct human trafficking. I think that it's funny to me that feminists are willing to defend sex work as a good thing, because they fought all these years for women's rights, for women to be seen as more than sex objects. And now the way that you're a strong, independent woman is to sell pictures of your butthole for $7 on the internet. So as a mother of 4 daughters, I don't like this. I don't think that sex work should be promoted. I don't think that legalizing it fixes it. I don't think that the problems in relation to sex work are solved by this. I also used to live in Nevada, in Reno, as a makeup artist and hairstylist when I was younger, and served the gals who worked at the Bunny Ranch in Carson City all the time. So I do have a little bit of an insider knowledge of what really goes on in that industry. And, just having a safe place to do sex work does not save you from all of the other bad things that come in and cause decay and problems and addictions and make people vulnerable. I think that legalizing sex work actually makes people more vulnerable, not less vulnerable. Anybody?
Cool. Is that what
Sorry,
are we?
the unmute button. Okay, so so I guess Destiny going to go.
I'm generally for people being allowed to do what they want to do. If there's like a consensual interaction between two different parties, I think that they should generally be allowed to explore that interaction. If there is an increase in human trafficking as a result of the increase in demand that happens when you expand things like prostitution or sex work, obviously that's something that ought to be addressed as well. But I have a very hard time imagining that there's some form of morality that I'm comfortable prescribing to an entire society that outlaws or prohibits the consensual interaction between two adults. So in general, I'm going to fall on the side of being okay with that type of work, while understanding that we need to do more on the enforcement side, trying to combat human trafficking and whatnot.
Yeah, I definitely charge more than $7, but I think that it's worth thinking about, maybe too, like, what framework allows people to be able to make moral choices, or to make the most moral choices possible, right? Because of course, I imagine there are a lot of people who would just prefer not to ever have to be involved in sex work, but feel like for some reason, maybe some lack of economic opportunity that they are doing it. I've seen a lot of studies that suggest that people do it under various forms of what we might call duress. Their circumstances are such that maybe they don't want to do it, but they do sex work anyway, right? So I think it's worth asking, maybe if legalization comes with all these problems, or decriminalization comes with all these problems, and it's worth talking about those problems. Think about the problems that these people have to deal with under the current system, where, for example, on top of all the other dangers you discussed, they also have to deal with the police, who often abuse sex workers, who often take advantage of them. And even in an optimal interaction with the police, you still end up with a criminal record that makes it harder for you to get another job, which makes it harder for you to leave sex work, right? So it's worth thinking about, hey, we want people to make moral choices, but we live in a fallen world with material constraints, right? And if you want to help these folks, is banning sex work the way to go? Well, for the 1 to 2 million prostitutes estimated to work in the United States, for example, it's put them at the mercy of a very rapacious criminal justice system that makes it all the more difficult for them to do anything else in their lives, to start over. So a decriminalization model, for example, might make it easier for them to kind of to do something else, because they wouldn't be subject to the same kind of on top of all the other problems that come with sex work, all the other problems that come with exposure to the force of the police. Now, you also mentioned sex trafficking, right? I think we would agree that seems to be what the data shows. But it's also worth asking, if every policy choice comes with good outcomes and bad outcomes, do the good outcomes outweigh the bad outcomes? Are more people able to live a better life, even with the situation you describe? But at the end of the day, if you want to talk about making it possible for people to make moral decisions, you want a more moral society, then I think probably you want a society that makes it easier for people to get out of sex work. And I don't think that a society that punishes sex work, all sex work, not just the purchase of sex work, but doing the sex work, punishes it with criminal sanctions, I think that society makes it even harder to get out of sex work, harder to make moral choices, and it works against, it sounds like, what it is you want.
All right, so we can open up the floor now.
Awesome. And I like so.
Yeah, to be clear, I think that ultimately my justification for it at the end of the day is the individual freedom one, but I know that we disagree on that one. So
no, well, you want to limit individual freedom, though, in many instances, right? Yeah. Isn't your overarching worldview that individual freedom must be limited so that all of us can experience maximum freedom?
Yeah, this is literally like it logically follows. You necessarily limit individual freedom to maximize individual.
I agree.
Freedom.
Yeah, my goal is to salvage as much as possible. So if there's no justification,
how is this a counter to either of our points of view? Then
I didn't say it was a counter to anything. I'm logically fleshing it out. So explain this to me real quick. You do think within your worldview paradigm that it's perfectly acceptable to limit personal freedom in order to make sure that everybody gets maximum freedom, right?
Of course.
Okay, got it. So what I'm going to ask you here is, can you make a case for me for why it is that you think that sex work creates maximum freedom without minimizing the sex work?
Yeah, I think I just did that.
Wait,
though.
What do you mean by minimizing the sex work?
Well, so are you saying that people have a right to be sex workers, for instance? Like
yeah, if there's like a trend, generally speaking, Now, I might be more extreme than Basti, but generally speaking, I think that two consenting adults have the right to enter whatever contract, both of them, assuming that there's not like any sort of coercion or like somebody's getting intoxicated and signing a contract. You know, like, if you want to sell your arm to somebody, fuck it, I guess, maybe.
I agree with what Destiny is saying there. The reason I didn't really go into that, which is what is my normal go-to, is that, you know, you were talking about a morality debate, and my argument here was to say that for the society that you seem to want, one with less sex work, it seems like, given the way that sex work works, where most people who are involved in it don't really want to be involved in it, even if they aren't necessarily being forced, well, making their lives harder through adding the punishments of the criminal justice system to all their other problems makes it harder for them to live a moral life.
But Bastia, I just explained how we have made it incredibly easy for them to enter it. What we're talking about is making it harder for people to enter this in the first place. So my daughters, who are 18 and 20, were sitting at my dining room table 2 nights ago showing me that several of the girls they went to school with have an OnlyFans now. Now, that's not something that you can take back. Those girls are going to have pictures of the inside of their vagina out there in the, you know, internet forever, even when they have, you know, children, or if they decide they want to quit doing that later. What I'm saying is we've dropped the bar and made it so easy. This is true of every single thing, unfortunately, you post on social media today, that every stupid, horrible thing you say is going to be there forever.
Yeah, but there's degrees to things. There
are degrees to things, but I don't know if sex work is even on the worst of that degree of things. Like, as it stands right now, you're probably your worst enemies if you made like a slightly dicey joke, you know, 15 years ago. Like, I've heard of more people getting fired because they made a dumb joke than, you know, they used to be sex workers and now they got fired or something. Not to say that couldn't happen in the future, but I don't think that any of us here, again, I don't think that any of us are trying to say that like there should be permanence to every single thing you do online and there should be no barriers to entry. Like, obviously we should make the people that are getting involved in this stuff kind of know the repercussions or what they're risking or whatever, of course.
How does an 18-year-old girl know that, though? How does an 18-year-old girl know that?
I mean, if you don't want to say an 18-year-old girl doesn't know, we could make it 21 or whatever. But like, that's right now in society, that's the age of majority. Like, you can say that an 18-year-old girl doesn't know whether or not she can do nude pictures of herself, but we do say an 18-year-old knows whether or not they can assume $100,000 of student loan debt. I mean, like, it's up to you to figure out like what responsibilities you think they can or cannot have. An 18-year-old male can go and fight overseas. They can join the military and do that.
I want you guys to justify to me what the problem would be with criminalizing sex work. What would be the problem with saying we as a society reject this? We don't think that you should do it. It's illegal.
Because you are prescribing your moral view. You're trying to limit the interactions between two consenting adults. I think you can do that, but the argument falls then on you to say, why ought this be? Why do you feel so strongly about this? That it needs to be illegal so that two other people that disagree with you should be compelled to follow your decision.
Well, you're using your utilitarian outlook. It leads to more negative results for society than it leads to positive results for society by every single metric that we can look at. For the most part, there may be some meager arguments that you can make, but there's no reason why society wouldn't be better off and has been better off with prostitution being legalized in almost all 50 states, with the exception of very few. You're the arbiter of change by saying that you want it legalized in every state, not us. Therefore, it does fall to you to make the compelling argument for why it should be outlawed.
Well, first,
why it shouldn't be outlawed or should be legalized. My bad. Go ahead.
Were you going to say something, Destiny?
Well, I was going to say the idea that this is a change on our end, like prostitution has been legal or prostitution has been existing in some form in the world probably for like 10,000 years.
But it's illegal right now.
So it might be illegal right now.
It is, but it has not even always been illegal in the United States.
Yeah, that's a really weird argument.
Yes, it has. Just in certain demographic areas, it's been allowed, just like it is right now.
It's mostly been illegal in most places. There were territories where it wasn't because there wasn't law enforcement, but for the most part, we had decency laws up until the 1950s.
Okay, so let's talk then about some of the various forms of sex work you'd like to ban. All right, so right now prostitution is largely banned. All right, and I talk about all the harms that come with banning it. Right, we've banned it, and as a result, it is harder for people to stop engaging in sex work because they have to deal with the criminal justice system that abuses them, that locks them up, that makes it harder for them to find other gainful employment. And if you're denying that being interacting with the criminal justice system makes it harder to find gainful employment, makes it harder to improve your life. I mean, I don't know how you can make that argument.
Work get you out of that? So if you don't want to be in trouble with the law, you stop being a hooker.
But that's the thing, right? People aren't. That's the problem that sex workers are routinely reporting, is that they are not getting into sex work primarily because this is something that they want to do. It's primarily because they feel like economic circumstances have in some way compelled them into this situation. Well, I might quibble with the notion of whether that's coercion or not. The fact is that's happening. And for you to say, well, we're gonna compound this by making more things illegal.
But you can apply that to every law. You can apply that to every
not
law,
all laws
literally,
are the same.
that if you made it legal, then whoever the criminal was wouldn't have to deal with the repercussions of the justice system.
Not all laws are the same. Different types of prohibition are very different.
Which is why we're talking about this specific law, the argument specifically that, well, it's going to compound the problems that they have with it makes no sense, because that would apply to every single law in existence.
No, it's you're talking about wanting to end a practice that already goes on despite the fact that it is illegal. 1 to 2 million people engage in prostitution in the United States. It's already prohibited.
Yeah, serial killing goes on also.
The difference is that there is no innate human desire shared by almost everybody on the planet to engage in sexuality and to trade, perhaps if you cannot get it any other way, resources to engage in this basic human desire. You are not only trying to fight a market, you are trying to fight, with the power of the state, the most base human desire outside of food, water, and air. And you're trying to say that we can use the state to control this more thoroughly than we already do.
Paying for the sex is not the human desire.
Right.
Wait, what is not the human desire?
Paying for the sex is not the human desire.
The desire is sex. Is the human Getting desire. It in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, but what you're making a false equivalency by saying that this is some type of base desire that's overwhelming for everybody to pay for the sex.
No, I'm not saying it's overwhelming for everybody. I'm saying it is overwhelming to think that you could actually stop it with the force of the state in any meaningful way. We already tried to do that. We already tried to do that, and yet we have a million people engaged in it in the United States.
I have a study for you that proves that when Sweden made sex work criminal, they shrank the prostitution market and they decreased human trafficking. If you look at places like Thailand, where all of this sex work is legal, you get tourist sex work. You get people going there to have sex with 12-year-olds and 9-year-olds and all kinds of other unspeakable things that we can't even say on this stream.
So what Sweden has done would be a step toward what I think Destiny and I have argued, which is that it is criminal to purchase the sexual services, but it is not criminal to engage in the sex work, which is one way to address the problem that I raised, right? Where sex workers are being, punished and abused by the police. People who purchase the services largely aren't, although
so you really think that Destiny would be okay with John being prosecuted?
Let me finish the point. Just to be clear, I believe in individual freedom, but the model you just raised as proof that criminalization works, no. It would be, if applied to the United States, a step forward. It would have the benefit of making it easier for sex workers to leave sex work without allowing people to purchase it free of consequence.
Wait a second. So just to make sure that I got this clear, your position on this from a moral standpoint is that the buyer should be the one who gets in trouble, but not the seller.
My position is that would be an improvement over what we have now. Not that is like the height of morality, but certainly if you're concerned about sex workers, if you'd like to get them out of the business of sex work or make it easier for them to leave the business of sex work, then certainly that's a step forward. That's a way to make it better for them.
I have a question for you, Bastiat. If that's the case, and we know that pedophiles exist, we know that pedophiles want to do pedophile stuff, shouldn't we just make it legal so that we can put it out in the open and regulate it, and that way we can get pedophiles the help they need?
No, that is another false equivalency. You're talking about, and then like serial killers, a narrow, aberrant interest compared to the much bigger market of sexual services generally. Right, so it's a much bigger issue.
No,
the state can actively suppress.
The difference is that we would say is that like a child can never consent to any type of sexual service. That's just not a thing that they can do. There's a difference. Like a child can't enter that consensual contract.
But you guys just said that people don't want to enter sex work. They only do it if they're coerced by economic conditions.
There's a difference between like a quote unquote economically coercive condition versus like this person is not of sound mind to consent to something. Like there's a difference between like I have to work a job so that I don't starve starve to death because that's the economy I live in, versus I'm 4 years old and somebody wants to fuck me. These are two totally different things.
Yeah, but
If
like
you can't see the
everything,
difference between those two things, I can explain, but those are two entirely different types of
everything could be considered economically coercive. That doesn't mean that they need to go into. That doesn't mean they need to go into sex work or that legalizing it in any way.
Of course, they don't necessarily need to, but that's just the decision that some people make. The question is, I think that the onus is on you to say, why do we need to make some particular thing illegal when we can say that this is the consensual like interaction between two?
Well, no, the onus would be on you, as it's already illegal, and that has been not only the status quo but the moral barometer for this country almost since inception, except in some small areas where it's regulated.
If that's
on us.
Yeah, if that's good enough for you, I'll just concede. Like, if you think that it's a good argument to say it was illegal, so it should stay illegal, like you're also in favor. Well, you probably are in favor of keeping gay marriage illegal.
Yes,
I guess you're probably also in favor of keeping marijuana and everything illegal. So that's not a real argument, though. Like, I can't engage with that. So
okay, but you should have to be able to make an argument.
No, I don't. That's not how. No, that's not how laws work. The idea is that something is.
So why would the onus be on me? If this is status quo, why is the onus on me?
Status quo does not a legal argument make, okay? The idea is that things should probably be illegal unless there's a reason for them not to be, then they're made illegal. That's typically how laws work. Things don't start off as illegal.
I will make an argument to you.
Okay.
My argument to you will be that there is no upside to society for making sex work legal, especially since we have studies proving that when you criminalize sex work, it shrinks the market, it shrinks sex work being a thing. And that in countries like Thailand, where it's very open and it's very legal, you get ever more of that. And you get people touristing there to do the sex work. What is the downside of legalizing sex? What is the downside of criminalizing sex work if we don't want people to do it?
So there's
do you think that laws don't dissuade people?
So there's two different parts of this argument. So one is that there's no upside. Clearly, that's not true because there are people that buy and sell sex, and to these two like customers of this interaction, it seems to be an upside, and that's why they purchase and sell these services. Now, in terms of are there like negative externalities related to this? Yeah, that seems to be the case, and it's probably fair to say as much that it might be the case that it incentivizes more illegal activity or something of that sort. Sure, that's fine. But then I mean, like you try to work on your enforcement side for that. You try to figure out like who are the lawbreakers. You do things like that. You don't let the fact that some people do something illegally like that makes it so that you make the legal service completely illegal as well. If I were to apply that same logic to you, then I imagine both of you then would be against having any forms of firearms being legal in the United States because greater access and right to carry arms have like ubiquitously increased violence across states in the United States that have greater access to firearms or right to carry laws.
And let's try to apply some weighted characteristics here for the pros and cons and see if we can work out which one we think is more pro and which one we think is more con. Does that sound like fair?
Yeah, so the pros to both, I'm somebody that likes jerking off to porn, and I'm also somebody that loves firearms. The pros to both is that both are fun. That's it. If you think that there's any other difference, then you're just bullshitting yourself. But that is the reality. Like, we keep guns around because they're really fun to shoot and they're really fun to play with. We keep porn around because our dicks are really fun to shoot and really fun to play with. That's literally the same argument for both.
Look, I mean, and ultimately, just to echo that, in a free country, in a nation that is in a free nation, it is your obligation to come up with a reason why it should be prohibited. The whole reason I went through that whole exercise of talking about criminalization versus decriminalization was because I thought we were talking about what is the best way to make sex work less harmful. But if we're going to talk about, what is your justification for having it be free? Destiny's absolutely right. The first and most important justification is, what right do you have to stop me?
So 2 points. First and foremost, guns are not just there because they're really fun to shoot. Okay, that is obviously untrue and it's factually incorrect. People buy guns for all sorts of reasons, not just because they're fun to shoot. Self-defense is a reason. You could be working in some type of guard status as a reason. There's a lot of different reasons why a person would buy a gun. It's not just because it's fun to shoot. So what you would do is you would put the weighted characteristics on, the pros versus the cons. So you would come up with some type of policy on guns. Right? Summarizing it by saying we all just have them because they're fucking fun to shoot is idiotic and not true.
I mean, if we can dig through, so as a gun owner, we can dig through the data on this, and I'm super incentivized to dig through all the favorable data because I like guns and I don't like living in California. Guns for self-defense, like I think it's SDG uses how they classify self-defense gun use. There's just not good data to support that, unfortunately. Like the reality
doesn't matter What matters is that people buy them for reasons other than it's fun.
No, it is what matters. What Destiny just highlighted is an important point, because we do have 40,000 or so deaths in the United States every year as a result of gun violence. And the vast majority of those are not the result of some kind of lawful self-defense, person using the guns for the purposes you mentioned. For the most part, those are deaths that are the result of criminality, deaths that could have been avoided if the guns had been made illegal. And I am ready to say, look, guns probably make America worse than it would otherwise be, but because I think freedom should be the operative principle, and you have to have a really high case to say, yes, ban them. Yeah, I'm happy to say both of those things, but it sounds like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too by saying, no, guns are not bad, and that's why we should have them.
First of all, there's a constitutional right to keep and bear guns. There is no constitutional
would
right
that change your argument?
There's no constitutional right to engage in sex work. That's absurd. Two, the argument that
would it change your argument if there was one?
Let me finish, Bastiat. The second thing is that I can factually say 100% right now that not everybody buys guns because they're just really fucking fun to shoot. That's just absurd. It's not true. And so if we're going to have the premise for this argument, we should probably have it based on reality. The reality is that there's more to it than people just go to sex workers because it's fun to have sex.
Just to be clear, the reason why the fun excuse matters is because apart from that, there really aren't any strong, good, defensible excuses. Like Destiny said, most of the self-defense stuff is far and away small, and it's the exception. It's not what most of
you can defend yourself.
The motivation, not the reality of how it might apply, but motivation.
Okay, then the motivation. Some people might think they need to fucking masturbate to fucking survive or some shit, or they're too lonely or whatever. They don't have any of their fucking hobbies, or that's what they do for fun. Like, I mean, you can find like other motivations there then if you want.
Right. So then it would be important to say then, if that's true, that people aren't just buying guns because they're fun to shoot. That's all I'm saying.
Buying guns because they're fun to shoot.
You did. You literally.
I didn't say that was wrong. I like guns. I like shooting guns.
Two of you are driving me crazy with your edge arguments. Listen.
All right. We'll bring it back.
I'm a woman. I have 4 daughters. I'm telling you right now that pornography and prostitution are exploitative of women. Guns are one of the only things on this planet, it's the only thing that equalizes women with men. I'm pro-guns, I'm anti-porn and anti-sex work. This is logical, okay? This logically follows, Destiny. Please tell me how legalization of porn and making it free and erasing any barrier to entry and making all of this stuff legal is good for women. And if it's not good for women, it's not good for society.
Because he likes to rap to it.
You're literally the problem is that like we're a little bit begging the question. When you say is it good? Well, obviously you don't think it's good because you don't think that women should be engaging in this. But if I were to argue that a woman should have the right to say whether she wants to or not, then I'm going to say that giving them that freedom is in and of itself a good thing. And I would argue that you trying to restrict the right of somebody for selling anything that they can do as a service, I would say that that is not good.
There is no inherent right to do that. There's no inherent right to sell any service, let alone sex work.
You're making this is a legal argument.
It's not just legal. From even a moral standpoint, there's no inherent right to do that.
Nobody is talking about any. I don't know what the fuck you're getting on some fucking natural rights or inherent right to do something. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm just saying that in terms of like what should you be allowed to do with your body. I think most of us say that we should be allowed to like engage in like forms of like doing what we want to do with our bodies.
So
why would you say stopping a woman's right to do this?
Ignore the fact that this is extremely exploitative, and that you just said, and Bastiat just said, obviously most women don't want to get into sex work. Okay.
The reason I mentioned
by making this such a huge industry, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's exploitative.
What do you mean? What do you mean by
ignore that and go? Well, they have the right to do what they want.
What do you mean by exploitative? Can we figure this out?
Yes, we can figure this out. So Bastiat just said.
No, if you're going to go with my point, I'm going to have to clarify it.
Wait, I don't care
that's not what I said.
We're not talking about what Bastiat said. I just want to know when you say it's exploitative, what do you mean by that?
I'm saying that I don't want to say he said it, so I'll just say it. Women don't do this because it's what's good for them or fulfilling for them or things like that. They do it if they need money. They do it if they want attention, if they don't have anything else going on. But mostly it's an economic thing, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be arguing why they could sell it. If it was something they just love to do, they'd be doing it for free. But
I understand. I'm going to skip. Hold on.
Are you going to let me finish? Because you said you have to explain it to me. So I'm trying to explain it to you.
I just want to skip all these arguments because all I'm going to do at the end now is I'm going to say, what's the difference between this and working at McDonald's? Because you're saying it's like, it's not good. It's not fulfilling.
There's no difference between sex work and working at McDonald's?
I know what the difference is. You seem not to, because the answer that you just gave me describes every single service job ever. So don't laugh at me. You're laughing at your own answer. Okay. So I'm asking you to tell me what is uniquely
is the same as serving burgers. Are you retarded?
Do you think that first of all, if you've ever worked a service job, you are getting fucked by customers constantly? Okay. Number one.
I have.
Number
I've worked
two.
Retail.
Okay.
I've worked in salons.
Number two. Not all sex work is letting people fuck you.
Nobody's coming inside me though, bro.
No, well, we have condoms too. People don't have to come inside you anyway. Number two, not all sex work has to be getting.
Then maybe
fucked
they'll
by
come
other
inside
people.
you.
If I wanted to make that money, sure. So I'm going to ask you again, because you haven't given me a good answer. Okay, what makes sex work uniquely exploitative? Don't just say it's not good or it's not fulfilling.
What makes sex work uniquely exploitative is that it is degrading, and nobody enters into it willingly unless they are economically pressed to do it.
Okay,
you can look at documentaries where they've interviewed.
I don't need the extra bullshit. Okay, I don't need the extra bullshit. I'm just looking for your answer. So once again, you've told me it's degrading and no one enters into it willingly. You've described again every single service job. So I'm going to ask you one more time, what is uniquely bad about sex work? Let's see if I can get an answer that doesn't apply to every person working at McDonald's.
If I was Destiny and I was a total nihilist and I thought that all we are is wet meat suits walking around and that nothing matters, then I guess I wouldn't think there's a difference. But I do think that people have souls. I think they have self-esteem. I think they have things that make them human beings, and that when you sexually exploitate them, that's obviously bad. And as a woman, there is something different about a person entering you, a person doing things to you internally, people viewing you, being at, look at most of the genres of porn that are popular are things like stepsister fantasies, incest type of stuff. It's really gross stuff. This is not things that are conducive to good self-esteem or healthy mental health or anything like that. There's nobody who goes into sex work and comes out of it and says, I'd have done that for free because it was just so good for me. It was just so fulfilling. And you can't compare flipping burgers to getting fucked on a camera and letting everyone watch it.
You can't in one breath call me retarded and then in a second breath say that sex work is bad because it hurts your soul. I'm going to need something better than that. I'm sorry.
Why do you need something better than that?
Because
I don't know
where the sole argument that she just made is why she believes.
We can see it fucking happen in real time.
Because that argument, that bit about the soul and the meat suits, is her justification why the police should be able to roll up and beat you in the fucking head and drag you to prison because you engaged in this activity.
I didn't say that.
So how do you purport to make something illegal except to use the force of the state to do so? So if you're going to say souls are why, look, it's all the same as working at McDonald's, except our souls are involved, very religious, and therefore the cops should be able to club you for it, perhaps even kill you for it. It's a very important point to make.
Calm down first of all, and let me clarify.
No. Yes. Don't do that calm down nonsense. Because what you were doing right now, what you're doing, just to be clear, is you are arguing for serious state repression on the base of a nonsense half-thought.
You're goddamn right we are.
And that's ridiculous.
Right,
that is absolutely diametrally opposed to what the United States was founded for.
I would be perfectly happy with enforcement.
And frankly, this is a bunch of globalist, anti-American bullshit.
Hey, Bastiat, I'd be perfectly happy with not putting prostitutes in jail, but putting the legal aspect onto Johns and onto people who put all this pornography online. And to say to companies, no, you cannot have endless free porn. No, you cannot have. How many times has Pornhub been caught having kiddie porn on there? It takes them days to get it down. But if I question a vaccine, I can get taken off of Twitter in 2 seconds. Okay. So there is something going on here. I would say we can make it so that prostitutes don't get clubbed in the head and dragged off to prison, but we can certainly make it extremely costly for men to seek out these services and for free pornography to be as ubiquitous as it is. And if you think that that doesn't affect young people, we have studies that show that men who have porn addictions can't get it up anymore. They have dysfunctional relationships. Women who have many partners can't pair bond. They have trouble getting married and staying married. Yes, there are effects to human beings. We are not just pieces of meat, you crazy psychopaths.
Let me say a couple things about that. The whole reason I went through that starting motion that I sort of regret now about saying, well, here's a way that maybe we could achieve what everybody wants. The whole reason I did that is that idea of that you just mentioned of leave it being illegal for the buyer and make it legal for the sex worker would make prostitution much better for all involved. in society, whether your interest is yours in more morality or your interest is Destiny's and mine in wanting to be able to hire a sex worker. Either way, the world is a better place for you than it is right now. So that's fine. But we're also running into a problem here where we're conflating all sex work as being kind of the same, right? Prostitution right now would involve liberalizing something that is already almost fully prohibited, except in Nevada, right? What you're talking though about with respect to pornography and the internet is adding a whole new crackdown. And in addition to arguing all the problems of pornography, in addition to having to overcome the fact that freedom, especially in the United States, has some value. But I mean, you've got to somehow demonstrate that your widespread new prohibition will not come with all the problems of all the prohibitions of the past, of alcohol prohibition, for example. And alcohol abuse having all the same problems or most of the same problems of pornography that you mentioned, along with many more, violence, for example. I mean, you've got to try and demonstrate that in addition to everything else, that this future prohibition, which would be of a sort scarcely imagined in American history, banning all this private production of pornography. Yeah, let's talk about China. So in China, which has assembled the world's most brutal, large-scale police state to ban pornography, you're talking about how 90% of American kids have seen pornography. Well, it turns out in China, about 70% have seen pornography. In exchange for that 20% reduction in pornography, they've built a brutal police state that can track people anywhere at all times, and of course is used to suppress religious beliefs of all sorts. So that's the price of this system that you propose here, is a massive haircut of all kinds of individuals.
It's not the price. Pornography was already illegal in this nation. Where was the oppressive police state, Bastiat?
Yeah, it wasn't very well enforced.
Where was the oppressive police state?
And this is also in the past. This is also in the past. This is in the past, as Base Homeschool Mom mentioned very thoughtfully, I thought. It is very different today than it was in the past. The production of pornography electronically, its dissemination electronically, would require the kind of electronic controls that have made China into such a... I often can get on a high horse here, but it's a terrifyingly dystopian...
but we can ascertain from your argument that this would require some type of massive police state. Pornography was already illegal inside of the United States. There was no massive police state that came as a result of that. It's insane to even say that.
Right. When it was illegal, there was far less of us produced because we didn't have the internet either. It was a much easier thing to perhaps...
If they can kick me off of Twitter for questioning election results or vaccine safety, then they can certainly do something about ubiquitous free pornography. That's ridiculous.
First of all, again, I don't think they should do anything about ubiquitous free pornography, because I think all the benefits you've described of banning them are far and away outweighed by the cons and, again, the freedom interest. But what you're saying is, again, you're using a situation that just doesn't compare. Yeah, maybe they banned you from Twitter for the vaccine thing. That doesn't mean that vaccine misinformation has been scrubbed from the internet or scrubbed from Twitter, as our country's uniquely pitiful vaccination rates show. That information is still out there.
I can go to Twitter right now and watch anal sex videos. I can go to Twitter right now and watch people coming on other people's faces.
And I got to say, the hundreds of thousands of people who died of COVID, one is that's awesome. And two, the hundreds of thousands of people who died of COVID in part thanks to vaccine misinformation.
Destiny,
frankly, watching somebody get fucked in the ass is a lot less harmful.
For the first time, is that cool for your son? You love that? You just want your son watching porn all day?
Like, again, this is why it is so frustrating to talk with, and I don't mean this personally, folks like you who immediately resort to the disgust argument, right? That's your problem at the end of the day. You find it disgusting.
There's nothing wrong with the disgust argument.
It is wrong because not everybody thinks it's disgusting, all right?
And two, and I don't want my kids watching it.
The funny thing is people turn like 30 or 40 and they somehow think that like their fucking kids are going to be jerking off to Sears catalogs. Like they forget what it was like just 20 years ago or whatever, or 30 years ago when they were kids.
That does not do the same thing to you as watching gangbangs, okay? Jerking off to the Sears catalog doesn't do the same thing as watching No, we have studies that show that the more pornography you watch, the more and more crazy, twisted stuff it takes to get your rocks off.
That might be the thing. And there are good arguments for how we ought to change the way that we engage with different types of mediums. You can make the same argument about video games. You can make the same argument about social media. You can make the same arguments about Reddit. There's tons of good information in there.
Again,
no, the same degree. Yeah, because pornography is like an all-encompassing thing. Pornography is going to be more damaging than just one social media or something.
And
so
this
it's an
idea
important
that
distinction to
pornography is
make.
uniquely harmful is, again, entirely subjective. I mean, think about all the disgusting,
No, it's not
insane, racist,
entirely
authoritarian
subjective.
political arguments, all the communists who
you guys are
pollute
perfectly
the internet
happy
every
to
day,
throw people
and you're going to
in
go and
gulags
tell
for
me
that.
that, oh, well, you see, pornography is uniquely, among all the other forms of online communication, uniquely harmful. It's just another subjective disgust argument based on, again, a personal
When we
preference that
can
when you get
engage-
down to it is based on nothing.
Like Destiny just said, if we can engage in the degree, then we can ascertain that some behaviors are far more damaging than other behaviors. In this particular case, this behavior is extraordinarily damaging, and the evidence is all on our side that it's damaging. You're not even arguing against that.
There is the idea that an addiction to it is damaging is of course the case, but there are plenty of addictions in society that are damaging, that we know are damaging, that arguably have even less upsides than pornography that we seem to tolerate.
Well, what
For
are the
instance,
upsides
The entire for the
for pornography?
Well, the upsides are for the guys that masturbate to it. They obviously enjoy that. And the upsides are for the people that engage in the business of selling it. They get an economic, I guess, rent for it, right?
So it's utility in your mind.
I mean, everything is utility in my mind. I mean, like that's a weird way to put it, but I mean, like you're asking. It's just. I just want you to know that when you're asking questions like, "What's the upside?" You're begging your morality, right? Because obviously,
No, I'm begging your morality.
No, there's. You can't just repeat what I say back to me. Like that's an
Destiny
argument.
doesn't
Okay?
have morality.
So,
That is not true. It is just not your morality.
Hold on, let me finish my fucking point. Holy shit,
Okay.
okay? All I'm saying is that there exist things in society, like, for instance, casinos, okay, that arguably, have little good use in society, right? People like pulling the hammer on slots over and over again probably doesn't do much for us, but we let people do it because they want to engage in this behavior, while also recognizing that we probably shouldn't engage in that much of that behavior. Just because you think that indulging in something into an excess is bad doesn't mean it has to be completely made illegal.
Okay, first of all, that's ridiculous, and I'll tell you why. Like when it comes to casinos, for instance, these are mostly done by Indian tribalists, and they have their own sovereign nations, so they can get around the
Stop, that's not true. Come on,
It
stop.
is true.
Caesars, Harrah's, go to fucking Vegas. What are you talking about? There's
with
tons
the
of American
exception of
casinos.
the same place where prostitution is legal. On almost every other place, these are all casinos that are based around tribes who have their own sovereign nations
can we
that don't
just-
even apply to the United
No,
States.
can we? Okay, I'm talking about U.S. casinos then. I don't know what you're talking about. Go to fucking Vegas. There are plenty of U.S. casinos. They're not all tribal. I don't know what you're talking about.
They're all in one place. One, which is in Nevada, essentially. And everything else
there
is
are
on
casinos-
Indian reservation.
No, go to Connecticut. Go to okay.
Even if you were right, what difference would that
No,
make?
no,
The
no,
fact that
no,
you've got
no,
a
no,
different-
no, even if he's right,
You're
he's
not
wrong.
right.
That's not how casinos work. There are
You're
casinos
not-
all
yeah,
over the United
it's wrong.
States that are
They
legal
are all
on
over the
U.S.
United
federal
States.
ground. It's not just like tribal shit. That's not true.
Yeah, but even
You guys
adding
think,
this layer of tribal sovereignty does not change
is
the morality
same
of the
as a girl
situation.
getting gangbanged on camera. You guys are
Arguably, grandma pulling the
that
slots
granny
is-
playing the slots at the casino is the same thing as allowing
one said-
gangbang porn.
First of all, you can't just say gang bang in your homeschool mom voice and expect us to have some kind of moral outrage. Number one, okay?
Well, you should.
Number two,
And if you had a good mother, you would.
okay.
Why are you getting to that?
Wait,
You know?
Why
like,
are you
obviously-
even like this? Well, obviously because I have a sense of decency and because I care
No.
about these things.
All right, you want to talk about
Talk
sense of
about
decency
you are
here? Because you're going to
nihilist.
impugn
That's
a sense of
my problem.
decency.
It's not a matter of having.
Sorry, you don't have decency.
It's
If,
not
like
a
I said,
matter-
if you had good mamas, maybe you would.
It's not
All
a
right.
matter of having a sense of decency. It's a matter of there is a particular behavior that two consenting adults might want to engage in. The onus is on you to say why this behavior ought to be made illegal. There are plenty of indecent things in society that all of us partake in. It might be masturbating to porn. It might be smoking cigarettes. It might be being fat because we eat too much shitty food.
Well,
There's lots of stuff
I'd
in
be willing
society.
I'd be willing to meet you guys halfway. What if we don't ban pornography? What if we just make it so that none of it can be free and we have to make it really expensive, just like you guys want to do with cigarettes or drugs or things like that? How about we just make porn really difficult to obtain, really difficult to produce, and then we just punish the Johns and the people seeking it the same way we do with child porn and other morally abhorrent things.
No, we do that with child porn because child porn can never be made.
I understand the difference, but I'm saying this is exploitative of women. It's bad for society.
You haven't demonstrated
it leads to
that.
lots of bad effects.
You
Why not?
demonstrated
Why
that
does it have to be free? Why do we have to free
You haven't
unlimited
demonstrated.
porn?
First of all, you haven't demonstrated that it's exploitative. So we would have to start there. Every time I've asked you for, you have not demonstrated that.
Is human trafficking exploitative?
Yes.
Did she tell you that there would be a decrease in human trafficking with pornography or with prostitution illegalized via a study?
Yes.
Then she demonstrated exactly what you're asking her to demonstrate.
An externality does not make an activity immoral. If that was the case, every single thing we do would be immoral because it all causes pollution.
You asked us to make a demonstration for how it is exploitative. She demonstrated how it was exploitative. And you just agreed with it.
An externality does not cause something in it of itself to be exploitative.
Okay, but your argument wasn't, it was that it was exploitative. You demonstrated that it was exploitative via a study.
My question was, how is this particular behavior in and of itself exploitative? Because she keeps saying sex work is exploitative. Not sex work is exploitative because it leads to human trafficking. Because if you believe that, then my next question would be, if it caused no increase in human trafficking, would you be in favor of sex work? My guess is you would still say no.
You said human trafficking was exploitative.
That is a good question, actually. Suppose there were no negative externalities to sex work, and all you were left with was kind of this issue of souls and all that. I'm not trying to be rude here. I just, I don't feel that way, so I don't quite know how to describe it. Would you? I mean, you'd still be against it. You'd still want to use the forces of the state to suppress it, wouldn't you? And the rest of this stuff is just window dressing to try and persuade fools like myself who disagree with you, isn't it? I mean, you don't really care about any of this. All you care about the fact is that you think it's wrong based on religious precept, and that's the end of it.
It's not just on religious precepts. So we have two very different moral opinions here. You guys are basically consequentialists. Isn't that correct?
No, let's not do the philosophy terms. We don't need to do this.
Well, I mean, that's just true, though, objectively.
But it's not relevant to what we're talking about right here.
It is if we're talking about morality. Sorry. I don't like it either, but would it be good if everyone's daughters did sex work, would that be good?
It has the potential to be.
Really? Okay, explain that. Flesh that out for me.
If we were in a society where doing sex work led to literally no negative downsides and everybody did it, then sure, it'd be fine.
If we were in a society where it led to no, how would that be possible?
I don't know. People don't demonize it, or people have an engagement with sex that doesn't lead them to
stigma.
And it's possible to imagine a society where all these negative problems that come with sex work, like men abusing, police abusing them, all that stuff could be cured by making our police better, by making men a little more thoughtful about, and women too, people more thoughtful generally about sexuality.
So if your sister was doing gangbang porn on Pornhub, you would be like all for it. It would be great.
If my sister,
when you ask questions like that, you're trying to
because if it would upset you, outrage. If you're saying no, so if I say, hey Bastiat, if you found out your mom started doing porn or your daughter or your sister started doing porn, would it upset you? And he was like, well,
no, I was about to answer.
It would upset me if my child worked at Burger King for the rest of his life. That doesn't mean it should be illegal.
But you think that would be as bad as them doing porn? Because I can tell you right now, I'd rather my daughter worked at Burger King for the rest of her life than do porn.
Ma'am, I don't care about what the fuck your daughters do. I don't know why you keep invoking them. They can go fucking bang bang or maybe tradwives or whatever.
It matters.
I don't care.
You should care because
I don't care. I don't care about your daughters. I don't care how many times you bring them up.
I'm asking you do you have a problem with anyone you care about doing it?
No, if my fiance or if my fucking mom or whatever wanted to start selling grandma porn, then go for it. I don't give a fuck. That's her life.
So when we break this all down, we can demonstrate all of the bads that come with sex work and explain to you how they overwhelmingly are worse than the positives of the sex work using rated characteristics. But even if we demonstrate that, that's not good enough. So what are we left with except our moral viewpoints?
Okay, I'll do this and I'll shut the fuck up for the rest of the debate. I just want to follow this one train of thought. Let's see if we can hold this. You need to tell me, why is sex work intrinsically negative? Without implying to some external, like it might increase this crime or blah, blah, blah. Why is sex work intrinsically a negative thing to do?
Because it's bad for the people who do it. By almost every single consequence, it's bad for the people who do it.
Okay, when you say bad for the people who do it, obviously the person buying sex doesn't feel that way. Obviously the person selling
okay, well, here's the thing. The people who are selling it, That's where the problem comes in. It's
Why,
negative
if it's bad,
because the results of everything that's done with it is negative for the most part.
If it's bad for them, then why do they choose to do it?
Why do they choose to do sex work?
Yes.
For all types of different reasons. A lot of times it's for mental illness. A lot of times it's because of economic reasons. A lot of times it's because they come from broken homes. There's all types of different reasons that it's done.
Okay, sure. So now I've got all these great reasons. Now I've got all these great reasons why you think this is a bad thing. So let me ask you this. Let's say that you could get a fucking 4-year STEM degree in fucking OnlyFans. Okay? If you could get a degree in it where they made sure that you're fucking you were of sound mind, you were thinking well, you weren't economically forced to do it, would you be in favor of those people doing sex work?
No.
Hold on. So when you say no,
but if that was the case, you'd have two people doing it.
Let him finish.
Nobody would do it.
I just want to go down one fucking line.
Yeah, let's go down it.
Okay.
Let's go down it.
When you say yes to that, you'd still have a problem. What you've demonstrated is that nothing that you just said mattered. What I'm trying to figure out is why do you think it's actually bad? Not you spew a whole bunch of random bullshit, and then I say, well, what if all that bullshit wasn't the case? And you're like, well, it'd still be bad.
Because regardless of the degree or regardless of what led to the degree or this or that, the outcome would still be negative.
What do you mean by? But what do you mean by?
You know what I mean by negative, and we've demonstrated what the negative outcomes are of these things. This is what I mean by this. It's like even from your consequentialist worldview, the consequences are still worse by making it legal than they are by making it illegal. And we can demonstrate that that's true. So if you're asking me, you're like, why won't you give me a reason why it's bad? It's like, if I can lead through the consequentialism to show you at the end of it, the consequence is worse, then it's fucking bad.
Okay. So the actual answer is you're morally opposed to it because you think that it's an immoral activity. That's your only answer. I just wish we could start from like, we can have a discussion on morality rather than all this other like random stupid shit.
My answer to it is by using your utilitarian worldview, I can demonstrate why it's worse via consequence.
Destiny, just to be clear, I mean, I think you were saying, I would agree, that if we're talking about utilitarian consideration, we should also consider the feelings of the people who enjoy the product, who
that's what I'm saying.
And
that's why it's stupid to say that it's bad for everyone involved.
Right.
The person engaging in the purchasing of the sale obviously doesn't feel that it's bad. The person engaging in the selling of the sale obviously is doing so because they're gaining some benefit. So at the end of the day, we've got at least two parties that seem to be consensually engaging in it. Now, if there's some negative coercive external factor, we should look at that. But that's not unique to sex work. That's similar of every single type of consensual transaction that we make in society. We might ask that same question of an 18-year-old signing a 20-year military contract. We might ask that same question of an 18-year-old signing $100,000 in student loan debt.
Yeah,
we might
so
make
we're
that same
consequences.
Exactly.
Looking at consequences.
But in any of these particular things, we wouldn't say that a potential negative external side effect makes the act itself intrinsically bad. Because if I were to point to any of those other actions and say, well, what if we removed all like the negative fallouts of that? Would you be in favor of it? You would still say no to sex work. Meaning there's some other reason why you think why it's not a good thing, but you won't just tell me that reason.
Isn't
they keep basing it on some bullshit.
Utilitarian consequentialist worldview works is that if the outcome is negative for most people, it's bad.
I think the point has been thoroughly made that even if there were no negative externalities, you would still oppose it. And while it's fine to say, why can't we talk about both? Why can't we talk about both? Look, at the end of the day, if the externalities do not matter to you, then ultimately there's no sense in talking about things like, well, maybe we do like they do in Sweden, where they've loosened it up somewhat and created better outcomes for everybody, because you don't care about the outcomes. You care about the fact that the initial act is seen to you for personal reasons as immoral. And that is fine for you to hold that belief and to act accordingly, but it's not fine for you to then call upon state action based on that belief alone. And that's all it's based on, because you've said that the rest of the stuff doesn't matter.
I have something else I haven't been able to talk about yet. So when it comes to being a woman, there is such a thing as sexual market value. If you have many partners, if you have participated in sex work, if you have participated in pornography in the past, your sexual market value goes way down. It is intrinsically harmful to women to participate in this because it limits their options of their future in ever having a relationship. And I know that to you guys, family doesn't matter, and these things don't matter. Nothing matters, right? We're just walking meat suits, and we can just spooge on each other and fuck each other all day, and it doesn't affect anyone, right? We're all just here to hedonistically jerk off all day and just have as much fun as we want. But in the real world, what happens to women who are employed in this type of work, their options going forward are extremely limited. And you could sit there and say, well, let's take away the stigma. There is no stigma you can take away from
Even if
that.
I were to grant you all of that and say that there was a sexual market value that is being decreased, it's not being lost for nothing. It's being sold for a premium. And I would argue that it's up to that person to decide whether or not that premium is worth it. Much the same way that any professional athlete is engaging in long-term harm to their own bodies. So for instance, every football player with CTE, everybody that's in boxing, MMA, these people are also trading parts of their life for some level of enjoyment. Even if that was the case, it should be your decision if you want to engage in that consensual act and you want to sell off for money some part of that future potential market value.
So you think that if everyone participated in sex work, our society would not be any worse off? If everyone did it,
if we wanted to go to the extreme, well, if
every
every single person did it, then your sexual market value wouldn't decrease because now every single woman would be the exact same.
That's what I'm asking you. What I'm asking you is, if everybody did it, if we universally applied this and everybody did sex work, would that be good for our society or would it be bad?
I have a neutral view on it. I don't know. I don't know if I'd say it's good or bad. I guess I argue for me it would be good because I can see a whole lot more people naked. But I mean, I don't know. That's when you say good or bad, what am I supposed to evaluate that from?
You guys are saying the positives and the negatives, right? So if everybody engaged in sex work, if we encouraged everyone to do it, and let's say 95% of people engaged in sex work, they put their entire vagina out there for everyone to see. Everybody did gangbangs on their OnlyFans. The only way that we did things was to sell sex, right? It wouldn't impact society. It wouldn't affect families. It wouldn't affect social cohesion. It wouldn't affect people's self-esteem. It wouldn't affect disease rates or birth rates. It would just be overall good if everybody engaged in sex work.
Is it the whole vagina? Or just part of the vagina?
Yeah, technically the vagina is the inside part too, so that's kind of weird. But if people are into it, my guess is it's going to be really hard to imagine whether or not a society would be good or bad because this is like a radically reimagined society. I could see ways in which it would be really good. Maybe people just don't take that shit as seriously anymore. It's not a big deal. It's whatever. And I could see ways in which it would be really fucking bad, where everybody's getting fucking raped, everybody's doing some crazy shit because we're just out of fucking control.
So
I don't know.
Which way would you?
Nobody's growing any food?
I have no idea how it go. You're talking about, again, imagining a radically different type of society.
Yeah, that's what we do with the categorical imperative. We do exactly
No. Hold on. This has nothing to do with the universal maxims. We haven't even gotten into that in this conversation.
But,
I say we should stop talking about like it's not all.
So she's asking you specifically if everybody was engaged in this activity. Do you think it would be a good thing or a bad thing?
The universalization of a maxim or some principle does not mean that everybody necessarily engages in that act. That's not what universal maxims are.
Under this hypothetical, it is.
Okay, I can't imagine that world. If you guys want to paint a picture, write me some erotica, film a fucking porn, and show me what it looks like where every single person is. Does this include the men too or only the women? You keep talking about male gangbangs. What about female gangbangs? Are there going to be men getting fucked by 12 women on camera too?
Sure.
This society, honest to God, sounds fucking base. So if you guys want to start that one, let me know when it happens, and I'll be the first to sign up for it, and I'll let you know how the first wave goes, okay? I'll be in that first group of testers. But that society is so
you don't think so essentially what you're saying is that you believe that if the society was set up where everybody was involved in sex work, male and female on both ends, if you were going to use your logical brain right now for the weighted characteristics, you would say it sounds like a base society and you would prefer to have that society.
The honest answer I can give you, I don't know what that society would look like. You have to acknowledge this would be a radically different society from anything I've ever heard in my entire life.
Let me narrow it down a little bit then. What if every girl, most states, like if you take the average, I think the age of consent in most states is like 16 or 17. So what if every girl at her 16th or 17th birthday, they get an OnlyFans account in their name? And every single one of them is taught about, like how to do this, how to market themselves, how to make money, which, by the way, the average OnlyFans account holder only makes $180 a month. That's the average. And the average sex worker enters the industry somewhere between the ages of 13 and 16, depending on the country. So there's that. So let's just say that when girls turn 16, we give them all their own OnlyFans, and they all get on the internet and they all do this. Would that be good?
Oh, it's child pornography.
Not. You're like literally like kind of pushing them all into some industry by creating the accounts or whatever.
Well, they don't have to do it.
I just don't understand why we're
teach them about how to market it, and we teach them about how they can be entrepreneurs.
Like, are you talking about like doing this in school?
No, we just say it's just like getting your social security card. We say, look, here you can have an OnlyFans account. Here's how you can market yourself. You can pay for your college. You could do all these things with it. If you're really successful and you work hard and you're a good sex worker, you can build a wonderful future with yourself by showing everybody yourself masturbating or getting fucked on camera.
I just feel like I think we were pretty clear. Children can't consent, so which is a whole reason.
Going back, we'll say they're 18 or whatever.
Yeah, in our state is like 16. Like I don't think you can,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that federally child porn is illegal under 18, which is the thing that he's running into.
Okay, so switch it to 18 if you want.
Okay, sure, 18. No one is advocating for teaching everybody how to do this particular thing.
Why not? It's not bad. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. Why not?
Nobody said
Why
that it.
keep this
Nobody.
opportunity from them?
Hold on. I'm sorry. Okay, you're mixing these up. Nobody is saying that it's not quote unquote bad. Nobody's saying that there's not bad outcomes or bad possible effects. Okay. What we're saying is you need a better argument than like that might lead to bad things sometimes to make something illegal.
Yes,
well, I mean,
alcohol
is not
if
illegal.
You guys are saying there's nothing wrong with it, then why not do this? Why not tell all these girls, hey, there's a great opportunity for you. You can get through college debt free. You can be free and never have to depend on a man
because
for
not every girl is going to get through. How much money do you think horny adolescent boys have? We're not going to fund the entirety of our female education system.
Do you think that it's horny adolescent boys who are?
So it's only a market limitation.
I mean, like, if we lived in a hypothetical world where every single woman could completely pay off their college education using OnlyFans, maybe that would be a good thing. I don't know. That sounds pretty based. But I don't think that there's enough money floating out there in horny, I guess, boys and men's hands in order to pay for that.
Yeah, so what you're saying is we have, it's just a market limitations thing. And that the more of it we put out there, the cheaper it is and the less people value it. And, so I guess the problem is the market limitations. It's not that all these girls would do that.
I think the problem is. Well,
I don't know how to. I don't know how to engage with like the. I love hypotheticals. I like engaging with hypotheticals. But you're trying to ask me to imagine a world that is so far removed from our world that currently exists.
Why would that be so far removed? It's already pretty well known. Like every girl knows that when she turns 18,
every girl is not given an OnlyFans account. Given an account. And every girl is not instructed on some nationwide level.
You think it's so far beyond the pale that somebody might encourage this, that OnlyFans might start marketing to 18-year-olds and going, hey, we just saw that you're 18. You know how they track all your activity online, right? So you don't think OnlyFans would ever dare say, hey, happy 18th birthday, by the way, you can start an OnlyFans?
If OnlyFans wanted to run advertising campaigns using internet ads or whatever, I guess they have the right to do that for places that want to carry those ads. But that's a lot different than should there be like a nationwide mandate or ought we teach like the entirety of like every family in society like to do this particular thing? These are different things.
You're still not really telling me why this would be okay.
I think that's an important difference here, which is there's a big difference between allowing and actively encouraging. You might, for example, conflate the two by saying that a society that allows something is ipso facto encouraging that something, because it's not punishing. But again, I guess that's just a real difference in how you view a society.
In the
United States, generally speaking, we view that, or we generally believe that which is not prohibited should be allowed.
That's
and you
not
gotta have
true.
a reason to prohibit something. That is true. Under the Constitution of the United States, and under the design of our government, that which you are allowed to do or that which you are not allowed to do is spelled out.
That's not presumed. That's a government.
Laws are
what they're allowed or not to do.
Look, morality is another issue. We're not talking about morality. We're talking about what you propose to do. What you propose to do with the force of the state.
The Constitution says what the government can do, not what it can't. You're making a false equivalency again.
No. What I'm saying is you're talking about a society where if you allow something, you are inherently promoting. That's why you're making this comparison. You are saying that if we allow it, which we are doing now, we are allowing people to make this choice individually, allowing adults to make this choice. We're therefore promoting it. But that is not true. And it's important to highlight that is not the case. They are not the same act. It is one thing to allow a person to do what Destiny said, and basically take in the information and make what they feel is the best decision for them in their circumstances. It is another to, on top of that, have, I suppose, a public school or whatever other policy instrument you would like, in this hypothetical, say you should do this.
So you don't think a bunch of Larry Flint style lobbyists who go through who say that porn should be absolutely legal in all aspects isn't, and the government then passes laws, isn't the promotion of pornography?
Now, I don't think allowing an act is innately promoting the act. I think that is a very different
But
thing.
the companies are allowed to promote it and market it to 18-year-olds, aren't they?
And I don't have to be clear.
Market and promote itself to 18-year-olds.
You can make laws against that if you want to. Kind of like how we have laws against like selling like cigarettes.
But wouldn't you guys be against that?
That's a totally separate conversation than the legalization of it.
How is it not related?
Well, I don't know really.
Hold on. No, stop. I am right. Okay. Whether you want to talk about how you want to advertise something is a lot different than whether something should be made legal or illegal. These are
I'm saying it's coercive, and that's why.
No, stop changing your argument over and over again.
No, I'm just asking you questions.
Okay. Whether or not something should be illegal is different than whether or not something should be marketed or whether or not something should be allowed to be advertised or whether or not something should be
restricted. But it is allowed to be advertised now. Are you guys cool with that?
Oh my God. Listen to what the fuck I'm saying, okay? Right now, cigarettes are legal, but we restrict the advertising. Do you understand? Can I get a verbal yes that you understand that it can be legal? No, not you, Rachel. Can you say, yeah, you understand that it can be legal, but not allowed to be advertised?
Yes, Destiny. I understand.
Thank you. Right now, we are talking about the legalization aspect of it, not the advertising aspect.
No, we were just talking about sex work in general. The topic was not the legality of sex work. It was
by the way, advertising and promoting that it's okay are also two different things, Destiny.
Sure, absolutely.
I would say that the government being influenced by lobbyists to make something legal in the first place is a promotion of that activity via private interest, period. It is a promotion of the activity, period. It just is a promotion of the activity.
You and Rachel were on board, and then you just jump ship again. So I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the legalization or the promotion of something, or like the advertisement of something? Because we can't have all the conversations simultaneously. Okay,
this is the movie Her.
We're not AIs that can have 52 like concurrent conversations.
Why don't you pick, because you seem really sweaty and mad. So why don't you pick?
I'm not sweaty and mad. I just like to have a topic about one particular thing. Okay. Then that's a good thing, rather than like hopping like, well, I think it should be legal. Oh, you think it should be legal? Should we make an OnlyFans account for every single 18-year-old?
Oh, we're sorry. We didn't go down the dialogue fucking tree, but
no one is on a dialogue tree right now, okay?
I'm totally comfortable right now. I'm really chill. So you can pick. Do you want to talk about legalization or do you want to talk about
my understanding is that we were talking about the legalization. That's why the first half of this conversation revolved around should it be made legal or illegal?
So if you want to talk about the legalization, you two have yet to address the fact that I just presented a study that proves that the more you legalize sex work, the more you get human trafficking. So would you please talk about that?
Sure. So whether or not there might be a negative external effect of something does not make a good argument for keeping that particular thing completely illegal. For instance, well, because there are a lot, because if we were to apply that same moral standard to anything else, we would have to ban so many illegal things. For instance, there is probably absolutely no good argument for keeping any form of fast food illegal. There are so many negative externalities related to our healthcare, related to our personal well-being, related to a million other parts of our economy, but we do because we like to have the choice to whether or not we can incur some long-term harm for some short-term enjoyment of certain types of food. That's why we don't apply that standard to anything else.
Which is why we have degrees of things, right? We have degrees for which it affects.
Maybe Destiny doesn't know this, but in the United Kingdom, there are many laws about junk food and fast food and what you can have and what you can't have.
No, there are taxes, but not laws against eating junk food.
Yeah, there's a lot of laws about what you're allowed to sell or not sell in the UK. I know this because I have a lot of fitness friends that live over there and they do bodybuilding shows, and they love to come to the States because they can get all kinds of food that's not allowed in the UK. They don't have access to it.
I'm not trying to like give me a source, bro, on this, but like, what do you mean by that? Like, you can buy sugary shit in desserts all over fucking Europe. Like,
no, in the UK there are bans on certain things. So like, you can't have a size of a soda or fries or something sold at a McDonald's over a certain amount. Like, it has to fit within a certain amount of calories and fats and trans fats and stuff like that.
Okay, but if you want, you could just buy 2 fries.
Food because they can't get it there.
You could just buy 2 orders of fries. I don't think this is meaningfully different.
Well, I'm just saying the UK does it because they think that it's a benefit to the overall public health and well-being. And because they have socialized medicine there, they think it will reduce the costs. So they do it. So I'm just saying you can't sit there and go, well, we should never and we can never, because there are countries that do.
And I'm just saying that this is the.
We don't do that in the United States. Do you think we should? Now,
well, aren't we based on British common law?
We had a revolution for a reason, right?
If you
still kept all the common law.
If you want to come at me with that argument, and you want to say, well, actually, there's a whole host of things that I think should be made illegal in the United States, I would be a little bit warmer to that. But if you want to be in that area, sure. But I didn't know that was your position. That there was a
my
whole
position. There's a lot of things I would make illegal. Yes.
But
I don't think you'd want to import the British system, because in the British system, a whole lot of right-wing people get arrested for their Facebook posts and their tweets and all the rest of it.
I didn't say
that is not the kind of state. That is not the kind of state any American should want to live under if they value all the freedoms that define ordinary American life.
No, I would like more of a Polish system or a Hungarian system. That would be better for me. But yes, we can absolutely limit things, and many governments do limit things that they deem to be detriment to the public health.
So yes, well and good, but
pornography and sex work could fall under that, obviously.
Kind of like what
this
you
kind of ties back. Kind of like what?
Kind of like what you want to do with guns.
No, I don't want to ban guns. I think guns are great.
I do.
I'm just saying that by the same logic. But just to be clear, I guess just to go back, I mean, I don't even understand what it is you want to preserve about this country. I mean, the thing that defines this country are the individual freedoms that make it unique in a lot of ways. And if you just start comfortable throwing all of those out, then
but
what even is special about it? It doesn't even make sense at this point. When
was founded, we did not have legal pornography. Pornography has only been legal since what, the 70s?
We had all kinds we had legal sex work. I mean, we had a lot of
witchcraft was a bannable offense. Sodomy was a bannable offense.
Yeah, things changed, but on the whole,
they were illegal.
If
you're talking about preserving the nation, that's a dead argument. That argument's dead in the water.
On the whole, the United States has been more free in a lot of important individual aspects. All right. And it's just, to me, it's very strange that there are purported nationalists here who value America, who want America to be first. Right. At the end of the day, the final analysis is, you know what? Let's go back to Britain. And that's basically what it comes down to.
No, I say in colonial times, you could be burned for witchcraft. You could be definitely punished for sodomy, for homosexuality. There were anti-homosexuality laws on the books until the 60s or 70s. There were many things that were illegal. We had decency laws. You couldn't show porn. You couldn't have Wet Ass Pussy be the #1 song of 2020. These things were not allowed until very recently. So if you're going to make the appeal that, look, this country was founded on freedom. No, this country wasn't founded on unabashed, unlimited personal freedom. There were plenty of these things that were illegal until very recently.
Which is exactly what you say when you say, I want to limit freedom in order to preserve freedom for the most amount of people.
Yeah, there's got to be like a good reason for it. And we've been trying, especially Destiny, you're trying to get a really good reason here. Where do the bad utils work? Right? Where do the bad utils outweigh the good utils? Right? And in the final analysis,
we literally demonstrated it.
We couldn't get that. We're not even willing to consider any kind of positive utility in the sense of people who enjoy the product, people who may really consensually make the decision to sell the product.
I totally can do that.
How are you? You have no way of.
I can weight them both and still say that the pros of keeping it illegal are better than the cons of legalizing it. I can literally do that and demonstrate it, and did demonstrate it through studies. What else do you want me to do?
How could you quantify? I mean, maybe somebody's done this. Can you quantify the joy that people get out of consuming a vice?
The best that we can do, right, is take statistical analysis from studies. Isn't that how you guys quantify everything?
I just ultimately speaking, I think that the problem is that because it seems like there aren't things that distinguish this any more than other issues. The question is why use state power.
Well, it's a great thing we're talking about this, then, isn't it?
Right? And because in every time we go down the chain, it always gets back to. Look, it isn't. It's just a disgust factor. It's just an innate truth, you know.
No.
Because evidence. We get to that.
Well, how much evidence do you want? Like what evidence?
I provided evidence. You guys haven't cited a study. Where's your studies? Where are your statistics?
If you want like statistics, first of all, you're not talking about the act intrinsically stuff. You're talking about external behaviors. But I'm not going to disagree with you that the legalization of prostitution increases sex trafficking in areas. This is something that's pretty well documented. It's not contested. However, something else that's not contested is that making things like pornography and shit available in a country reduce the amount of sex crimes. That's something that's really well studied as well, especially in Portugal because they did it there. So if you want, you can look at those studies as well. You can Google Scholar it right now. It'll be the first fucking thing that comes up. So in that case, would you be okay with legalizing things like porn and shit, but keeping like sex work, like prostitution illegal?
even if that was true and we granted you the premise, that wouldn't make the case for why prostitution is good.
Well, I'm not talking about prostitution. I'm just talking about porn.
He's conceded the
Not to mention, I don't know that.
I haven't conceded it at all. I'm just trying to demonstrate to you that you don't care about these externalities. So I don't know why you keep appealing to them.
And to be clear, I
Because
don't
you
think
do care
I
about
argued that it's some innate good. I am arguing that I don't think you should use the state to punish people who engage in it.
Why not? We use the state to punish people who engage in all types of moral activities.
I don't think it's either.
Only okay for the leftist liberals to use the power of the state to get rid of the things they don't like. But it's
Like
not
what?
okay for
Wait,
the
like
right
what?
to use the power of the state to get rid of the things that we don't like.
Wait, like what?
We're gonna get to Q&A in a bit, you guys. So if you guys want to begin winding it down.
Wait. What do the liberals want to get rid of using the power of the state? Can you give me an
Well,
example?
you
get rid
guys
of
want to
our
regulate
borders.
guns.
You
You want
literally want to get rid of our
confiscate
borders.
people's taxes. You want open borders. You want free healthcare for illegals. You want free college for illegals. You want all kinds of. You want the huge social safety net.
So
Why
You
not
already want to
just
get
money
rid of.
pays
You want to
for all
make
that?
social
You want
Just
to
so you
safety.
know.
I
get
don't know
rid
what
of
to-
our
okay.
borders. Literally, you said you want to get rid of the borders.
That's literally not what we said. I don't know how you still
That's
forgot
what
that
you
whole
said.
conversation.
You want it to erode to the point where there are no more borders. Right now, you're fine with the streamlined system. But
You
you're
guys
fine
want
with
to
it eroding
limit
to the point.
speech. You guys want to get rid of hate speech. So if I say the N word, if I say the K word, the J word, you guys feel that it's okay to make that illegal, that I can be kicked off the
I
platform.
feel
that I
like
can-
you
Getting
might be
kicked
talking to
off-
the wrong person on that one.
And getting kicked off a platform is not the same as made illegal.
Okay, well, let's say hate crimes then. Okay, so the motivation for the crime is it makes it a more punishable offense. So if I kill someone, that's bad, but if I kill them because they're black, it's extra more bad. The left is perfectly happy to legislate morality on their own terms. You guys just don't like it when the right legislates morality
Correct.
because we want
Nobody
to be
is-
advice, and you guys are a bunch of pervs that want to jerk off all day.
First of all, you're the one that said.
I don't
You're
like
the
it.
one talking about gangbang and
Yeah,
this.
you're the one that
fucking
said
that. I
gangbang
mean,
like 55 fucking
Yeah.
times. I'm pretty sure it's your most searched term in fucking Pornhub at this point, okay? You're the one that's been more perverted in this conversation than any of the other three people
It's
here.
helpful.
Number
Not.
one.
I didn't
Number
say I
two.
liked it.
Number two, nobody in here is just saying blanketly that like there can't be any legislation on morality. All legislation is moral. Whether or
Of
not we,
course, yes,
whether or
thank
not-
you.
Yes,
Thank
okay.
you.
But there is a different type of legislation when you're trying to prohibit the consensual behavior between two people.
Okay.
Where there is not an inherently immoral action occurring.
What you have demonstrated is that you like jerking off to porn, therefore you don't want it prohibited. I think it's yucky, therefore I want it prohibited. You're happy to legislate morality that you like and laws that you like, but you don't like it when I want to do it. If I want a society where I don't have to raise my kids to like make them Amish so that they don't have to look at pussy all day or hear songs about it all day or, you know, see porn for the first time at the average age of 11, right? Then I have to be Amish. That whole change the channel argument was fine 20 years ago. It doesn't exist now. There's nowhere you can go to get away from this stuff. There's no getting away from it anymore. You guys are perfectly happy to legislate your morality. You just don't like it when I do it.
I just think it's funny that if you thought the argument was, I like this thing, so it should be legal, and the other person's like, I don't like this thing, that should be illegal. The fact that you think that those two things are equivalent is really illustrative of the entire problem.
She didn't say it was equivalent. She said
That's
that you're happy
literally
to
what she said. She
said
literally
you're
said
happy
that's what
to
it was.
legislate morality.
Literally what she said.
No, she literally
Destiny,
said you're
you
happy.
said you love jerking off to porn, and so of course you don't want it made illegal. But
Right.
things that you don't give a shit about, you don't care if they're illegal.
I mean, I
You
just,
don't know who you're talking to, okay? When you say that, number one, okay? I've never argued in favor of fucking hate speech laws or anything. That's stupid as fuck, okay? Number one. Number two, things like having a social welfare net or a social safety net or different disagreements on border policy is not the same as making illegal the consensual activity between two adults.
Yes,
Why
we're
not?
aware of that, which is why she drew a specific contrast, and said, under your moral paradigm, this is fine because you like to fap to it. She thinks it's awful. She thinks that the right should be allowed to legislate morality just like the left legislates morality. You agree that the left legislates morality based on what they want. You gave examples of them doing this. She drew the contrast, I think, perfectly.
I don't think I've ever seen
Thanks,
somebody
honey.
so succinctly summarize points that have been debunked over and over and
They
over
weren't
again as I
debunked.
have you. Okay,
They weren't.
You
just
literally
because
are
you go
saying
all over the fucking place like a spastic. Doesn't mean you debunk shit.
No one is going all over the place. We
Yes,
can't go
you are.
anywhere all over the place because we keep returning to the same statements over and over again because you keep repeating them like they're an own when I've literally just said them. You
Destiny.
saying over and over again that you think the right should be able to legislate and the left should be able to legislate. I already told you that all legislation is necessarily
Right.
moral.
Exactly.
I don't know why you keep repeating
You're
it.
making the same argument that the girls made to me last night, which is this. It can all be boiled down to a few words. Whoring is good because freedom. Whoring is good because freedom.
No,
That's
that's
what
not
it
the
boils
argument
down
that we
to.
made.
That's basically it.
This is your problem, okay? And I don't know if it's the homeschool thing has prevented you from mentally maturing past the age of 14, or if you just haven't figured this out yet. But legal does not equal good necessarily. There can be plenty of legal things that aren't good. Just because I say this particular thing shouldn't be illegal doesn't mean I'm saying, man, that thing is so fucking good. I don't really think that alcohol and cigarettes should be made illegal, but that doesn't mean that I think they're good.
But you think porn is good. You said that.
I never said that porn is good. I said that
did.
I enjoy porn. I also enjoy fast food. I don't know if that makes them necessarily good.
Okay.
All right, so should we move on to the Q&A? All right, we will then. Okay, so from Dark Shadow Realm, please ask Destiny who's his barber. Chat really wants to know. It's
That's
a
a
fresh
mean
cut.
question. No one cares.
Okay, well, it was a super chat, so I'm reading it, so shut up. All right, so from John Locks to Based Homeschool Mom, why was Denim so upset yesterday and damn near cried during your debate with her?
Because I crushed her, and her only argument, she kept going, give me studies, give me stats, and I did. And then I said, okay, now your turn, you give me studies and you give me stats, and she didn't have anything. And again, Destiny didn't technically say it was good. I'll grant him that. He didn't technically say it was good. He just said he liked it. But Denim said whoring is good because my freedom. So that's why she was mad.
Well, I personally would like to apologize to Denims for last night. I know that she probably wasn't looking for a blood sports type debate, and I probably should have stepped in more.
Denims is always looking for a blood sports
I don't know.
debate.
I don't think she was.
The only time she's not is when she gets fucking crushed. So if she said she wasn't, it's because she felt like she did really fucking bad.
I don't think she did bad, but yeah. We are also, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, that we're going to start labeling our blood sport debaters so you guys kind of know what you're getting when you go into
Was this labeled a blood sports debate? I didn't know what I was getting.
We're getting a blood sports debate.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, it would have been nice to know about that.
But we always do gotta kind of have it to Destiny. He's not a fucking pussy.
That's true.
He kind of invented the genre, and he'll just go right in. So say what you will.
And he does take it on the chin.
Yeah.
All right. So from John Locke's, oh wait, no, we just said that one. Okay. I find it interesting that conservatives claim to be for individual liberties and personal freedoms, and then tell people they can't do sex work if they freely choose to do so at a legal age.
Can I answer this actually? I think there is an increasing dissonance, a cognitive dissonance, because the conservative movement in the past was very much dominated by the older Republican Party that was, very much focused on the business side. They reducing regulations, and they did also give lip service to certain social controls, but were not, not entirely effective with them. Now I think that there is an increasing growth among conservatives who are like, actually, I don't give a fuck about your freedom. It perhaps seems like a switch of things, but it's conservatives come in different flavors, just as people on the left do.
Conservatives have always been for personal responsibility, and they have always been for regulating immoral activities. That is nothing new, right? Paleo conservatives have always done that. They'll always will do that. That's what a paleo conservative generally looks to when they're trying to make societal changes, is look towards immoral activities in order to either regulate them or outlaw them. I totally and completely reject this absurdity that, everything is changing. It is true that paleoconservatism is becoming the counterculture, and I'm sure that the left, who has basically dominated the culture for the last, 16 years or so, are starting to have to deal with that as a counterculture, but that is a necessary side effect of left-wing dominance. It's going to happen that way.
Okay. So from Jason Dick, Does homeschooled consider how embarrassing it's going to be for her children when the kids at her school see this debate?
Well, I'll tell you something. I had a screenshot ready to go of a 13-year-old kid who was posting to a Reddit about how his 30-something-year-old mother started an OnlyFans, and all the kids at school got wind of it, and the kid was suicidal. He even asked the mother, "Will you please stop this? I'm getting bullied. I don't even want to go to school." And the mom was like, "No, it's my choice, and I need to be happy, and I need to live, laugh, love, and I need to do what's best for me." And the kid was like, "What do I do?" So no, my kids know that I say swears, and they know that I've said, vagina and pussy. Sorry about that, everybody. But obviously it was here for a reason that I'm saying these things. So it's far less embarrassing that I'm debating against sex work than that I have an OnlyFans like half their friends at school.
Just to maybe pour a little water on that. The other day I posted this story about how in Alabama, they got these big COVID, big problem of people who haven't got the vaccine dying of COVID, and people saying, "Oh, I wish I could get the vaccine." And Destiny said this too, but you were very quick, Rachel, to post, "Oh yeah, like this happened. Oh, but of course it is very plausible that this 13-year-old, his mom is like, 'No, child, it is my freedom. I don't give a damn about you.'" And then everybody clapped on Reddit. I mean, it's a post on Reddit.
Listen, 70% of divorces are initiated by women, so we know that women are perfectly happy to screw over their kids if it means making themselves happy.
How many of them were cheated on, though?
What's just astonishing is we're basing all of this. We are now here because someone posted something on Reddit. And that's why we're talking about it now. We know it's true because,
I was just saying it's less embarrassing that I'm here talking about, porn than me actually doing porn, which is what some moms are doing. And you guys are cool with it. So
that seems subjective.
Unless you can demonstrate the proper maxim of the argument to get to the baseline structure of why it is that it's bad for women to go and have sex and demonstrate it, then we're wrong. That's how that went.
Okay.
I like that's your character of our side, and your side was literally like, "Well, your soul."
No, that was one.
That was just me. You can pin that one on me. That was not BPF. That was me, and you can pin that one on me. And I'm happy. I'm happy to say that yes, I care about people's souls, and yes, I believe they have souls.
You care about them so much, you wanna cuff them and club them.
It's terrible. We want to just
care at all.
No, I want to dissuade people from entering sex work.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful, Bastia. Terrible. What terrible people.
All right, so from Eric Pone, so if we ban sex because it harms the person, why not ban tobacco and alcohol? Both harm kids in society.
Okay, so again, we're back to the degreed argument, right? So using their utilitarian structure, you can make arguments that say, well, yes, of course, alcoholism is bad for society in some ways, but it's good for society in other ways. So the whole time I was trying to get into this was to try to figure out to the degree of which sex work is bad. I would essentially say that sex work is worse than all of those things. All of those things.
Also, we have to remember that it's far, far easier to get a hold of pornography than it is to get a hold of a pack of cigarettes or a beer at 12 years old. It's way easier for a 5th grader to see porn than get smokes or beer.
It's true.
All right, so, okay, I'm sorry, but I promised to read all super chats, so don't blame me. Okay, so Neon Nor, Destiny, what type of Asperger's have you been diagnosed with? Always wanted to know.
It was so funny as the way you read it. You really...
All serious. She was read it so serious.
Destiny. How long?
And there's another one. Destiny, you have been blown the fuck out by a woman. Your debate cred is revoked. Go swim and fail to pull yourself up again. Sorry, super chats. Okay. So, next one from 256. Destiny, what is what is wrong with necrophilia?
That's a whole other conversation.
It's icky. It's icky.
It's super icky.
It's super icky.
And really
that's
gross.
why you want to ban it, is because it's icky.
Yeah, ban all icky things. That's
Okay.
Yeah, you go take a shit in the bucket in the middle of the road. You guys would be fine with that, right? Even though it's icky? Can we just outlaw because it's icky? I think we can. I think that's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, this is getting funny at this point.
All right, so from 256, question for the guy sweating in his gamer chair. Don't we age restrict casinos, cigarettes, etc.? Why not check IDs for Pornhub?
I mean, they're already kind of age gated. We just
I love how you just automatically.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you can figure out some way to do that, sure. But
Okay. All right. So from Neon Noir, Destiny, if you if you make things legal for a private entity to do, the government can just offload everything to private entities. It's private tyranny.
I don't even know what the fuck that means. But okay.
You know, when the private tyranny can come out and arrest you, you know, maybe we can talk. But government has powers that are very unique and distinct to government. The private entities, however powerful they may be, just you know, it's not the same. We can talk about there maybe some private entities in the United States have too much power. There may be an argument there, but to say that they are the government, that they are more powerful than the government, is just detached from. You know,
You've said in previous debates that you consider corporate interest to be a further additional check on the checks and balances of government.
Sort of, in the sense that,
So
you know,
you would have to see it if they are then that they're an equal branch to, yeah?
No, in the same way that I can sue the government, I can file for an injunction to prevent them from, say, destroying my house or something. Yeah, I have the ability to serve as a check on the power of government in that sense. That doesn't mean, though, that I have more power than the government.
And again, to chat, if you are on Twitch, we are not accepting any more questions now. You'd have to go to YouTube to send a super chat. The Q&A is closed off for free questions. Okay, so from Joseph, for Destiny, what do you think the mental implications of doing sex work can be, and how do you think sex work can affect their personal relationship?
I don't know. It depends on the types of personal relationships you're in. It probably depends a lot on the type of sex work that you do, or sex work that you do. Like, it just, yeah, I don't.
Okay. From Sussy Baka to Destiny, what does unite a country? How are nation states formed, and how are they kept from as one?
How are nation states formed, and what unites a country? I could write essays on this. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's like a ton of things. Media unites us. Leaders unite us. Laws unite us. External conflict unites us. Like, shared ancestry or ethnicity can unite you. Like, I don't know. There's like a million ways to answer that. I don't know, like, how.
Some countries, I mean, France, Germany, the result of centuries of conquest and war. The United States,
like
planned by
one of these
committee.
donos is gonna be like, Destiny, what do you think about history? Like, I don't know how to answer that question. Like,
These people came from your chat, so.
yeah, I know. They donate stupid fucking questions like this. Destiny, did you hear about Jeff Bezos? What do you think about him? Like, I don't know the fuck to answer that question. Like,
fucking train them better, Destiny. Train them better.
Christ.
Okay, so from the Strange One, Destiny and Bastia, how much should a sex worker be paid depending on their age, skill?
Oh my god.
This is market, whatever the market will bear for consenting adults. I mean, how much should they be paid? I mean, more than $7 if they're showing their butthole, that's for sure. I mean, damn. But, you know.
We got to apply minimum wage laws to all sex workers. And
you know, you might argue that there's some, you know, that the nature
Minimum
of sex work now,
butthole pics.
you know, the gig economy is such that it is, you know, that maybe they need better labor protection. I don't know, but you know, that's a different question, I suppose.
Okay, so from Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Holy shit, you're a famous dono.
She's actually been watching. Yeah, she's been watching the stream.
Oh, wait till you hear the question.
God.
Rachel, why do you hate Jewish folks?
I don't hate Jewish folks.
Okay.
Why would you think that I hate Jewish folks?
Amy Coney Barrett, Jesus. All right, so from CVS Sony, a question. If Destiny is fine with whatever happens between two consenting adults, is he okay with reinstating duels with no legal penalties?
I think that sounds kind of base, personally. I think aren't they legal in a couple of states? I think there's a couple of states who can do it, but or it might be countries. But like, if one side surrenders, then you have to stop. I think, but. I mean, fuck it. If people want to do it, fucking go for it. The only exclusions that should be made is if for some reason their ability to consent is inhibited. So like if I threaten to kill your kid, or if you don't consent, or like if you're inebriated, or if you're like severely mentally impaired. But otherwise, yeah, fuck it, go for it.
Yeah, I think dueling was banned for, you know, all those extra things that ended up surrounding the practice of, you know, two people
You talked
trying to
about
kill
this
each
a little
other.
bit, Andrew, right? About dueling? All right, so from Detrius, do you believe that Jesus' teaching of SW tolerance contradicts with your followings? I'm guessing
What?
that's to the bottom. I don't know.
Wait, what did they say?
Sex worker telling.
Oh, sex worker. Okay.
Yeah, because there's a
Say that
story.
again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Do
So
you
I
believe
think
that-
I think I got it. So
Okay.
I think he's asking Jesus's teachings on sex workers. We're not trying to demonize or do horrific things to prostitutes. Jesus Christ himself said that this was a bad act,
Yeah.
right?
He told Mary Magdalene to go and sin no more.
Right. So
And
the
she was
thing
a
is that
prostitute.
to answer that question directly, of course, it's not against our Christian ethics to try to outlaw a horrific exploitative activity. It most certainly is not biblically unsound for us to advocate for that based on the teachings of Christ either.
Okay, so from Ashkron, for Rachel, isn't saying that having more sex workers leads to more sex crimes similar to saying having more guns leads to more gun crime?
Well, I don't know. I was just quoting a 2012 study of 116 countries where they found that to the extent you legalize sex work, you also increase the inflow of human trafficking. So you would have to talk to the people who conducted that study if you have qualms about it or their methods.
And remember, even if it's true with guns, there is a Second Amendment right to guns. There is no inherent right, constitutional or natural, for sex work.
Just about that. Okay,
Although
so
if I were
from
writing the Constitution.
from the strange one for the fascists, are women the only people who can become sex workers?
Of course not.
Absolutely not. About 30% of sex workers worldwide are male, most of them children, unfortunately.
So from Jada Lee for the panel, when do we start taxing sex workers' income?
It already should be.
From Sussy Baka, in 2002, Israeli troops occupied all TV stations as part of the Israeli-Palestine conflict and broadcasted porn. What is the panel's opinion on the weaponization of porn?
The CIA and other intelligence agencies have well documented that pornography can be used as a psychological warfare method. So yes, that's true. That did happen. And unfortunately, that's a very good way to subdue a population. Like Destiny said, junk food, smoking, other vices weaken a population to the extent that they propagate, it will weaken the population. And yes, that's very well documented as a form of psychological warfare.
All right, so from you, Destiny, are you concerned about how sex robots are automatic away sex worker jobs? I was trying to say, what idea do you have on alleviating this issue?
Man, who knows? That's all I know is that if all the sex worker jobs get automated away, at least people like Big Papa Fash will still be here to build the robots. So,
And you'll be here to design them.
That's great. Comparative advantage.
So from Earthman Brick, for Bastiat, how will taxation work for low-level sex workers?
I imagine the way it does now. The only difference is that in my, I suppose, ideal society, the sex work is currently illegal, like prostitution, for example, would be legal. So prostitutes could do the same TurboTax the rest of us are doing.
So from other Anthony, where does everyone on the panel draw the line for sex work? For example, would Hooters be considered sex work?
It's kind of an interesting question, actually. Do you guys feel like Hooters is sex work?
No.
No, I would say no. You can be sexy. We're not going to try. We're not absolute Puritans. I know that compared to the guys on the top, we might come off that way, but we're really not like absolute Puritans. I'm not going to start trying to illegalize skirts that go above the knee or things like that. I would say pornography and prostitution would be where I draw the line.
Can I ask you if somebody, just out of curiosity, somebody on OnlyFans is really big into feet, and all they do is just feet stuff? Is that sex work still? Because a lot of people interpret it very sexually. And, is that sex stuff?
It's still sex work, yes.
So, I mean, short
If it's
skirt.
on a platform like that, yes. If say you had an Instagram and all you did was take pictures of your feet with pretty bracelets that you make or pretty toenails that you polish or something, I guess that would be something that you wouldn't want the state in on. But if it was on a porn platform, then yes.
One of the
And by the
reasons,
way, I'm willing to make the concession that there is a difference in the degree of things like feet porn, which are fetishized, very specific types of non-genitalia-based pornography. I'm willing to concede that maybe in some of those cases you can make exceptions.
My state-approved non-genitalia-based pornography. Thank God.
One of the reasons
The
that
bridge.
I was curious. One of the reasons these sorts of bans are so frustrating is that there would be there would be an office out there making these kinds of kinds of calls, and it wouldn't
we
be.
did. We had that.
Wouldn't be
We
making
had
them
that
based
the whole
on.
time.
Nothing wrong with doing it.
Be making them based on the same kind of ridiculous, arbitrary nonsense. Stay soft and ban things.
Was it silly and ridiculous in 1930? That's less than 100 years ago.
I mean, in my opinion, it was ridiculous when the state banned pornography in the past too. I mean, I'm sure it was applied in ways that were on top of everything else, horribly unequal and racist, all the rest of it too. I mean, just because given the way that the law worked in 1930.
Come back to racialism.
Look, in 1930, I mean, race was a fact of
yes, we get it, but we're talking
racial
about
discrimination was part of law.
Racism.
So it is important the reason I raise it is that kind of history in the United States is an example, a continuous reminder of how government can be used to wreck the lives of people who have no even when the law doesn't spell out, right? It can be implemented in ways that compound the harm on top of the ban.
That was a global occurrence with every single government. Everybody was racist.
I have never been one of these people that argues America is uniquely awful. My point is say
Destiny
that bans,
is tired and he wants to get back to his porn tapping.
Arbitrary bans are used for nefarious purposes like racism.
All right, well, we got one more question and in a super chat, so we'll read if any other super chat comes in though. All right, so from David, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Have BPF and BHM ever watched the Kyle Dinker? I don't know how to say that. Dinkeller traffic stop tape where he was shot to death by a Vietnam veteran with a rifle. School shooting.
That's a topic for a whole other time, which I'm happy to get into. But just like Destiny said, in many of these cases, there's a long form explanation that deserves to go into these things.
So from Bubble Bobble, for BPF, nobody is forcing you to watch porn. If you feel it's bad for you, why do you want to take others' freedoms? Should we legally ban you from smoking since it's more harmful?
Yeah, and I've heard this argument several times, which again, we're talking about the degrees in which it's harmful to society. So in this particular case, what I'm dealing with are two basically utilitarians. I'm sure that their views are slightly different on the utils of things. Everybody has their own personal qualifiers for morality when it comes to utilitarianism. But I thought that it would be best to make the case that if we're basing these things on degrees, that there are degrees in which smoking is harmful. That's true, absolutely. But using their utilitarian system, I was trying to argue in favor of my own system using utils. So is there an argument to be made against smoking? Absolutely. Is there an argument to be made against advertising smoking? Yes. And absolutely, the government outlawed the advertisement of smoking. Right, so saying.
All right, so we're going to do closing statements and final thoughts. So I'm going to go from Rachel and then Bastiat and Andrew and Destiny.
I don't have that much to say except that, not to appeal to all of your moral decency, but these guys are perfectly happy to take the mask off and say that they like this stuff. And their only argument is whoring is good because my freedom. There's not much more to it than that.
Okay, Bastiat.
Okay, there's a little bit more to it than that. Right? And I guess this all just goes back to the start, right? We're talking about nationalism, we're talking about patriotism, we're talking about good society. Well, the thing that makes all of this freedom stuff so important to me is that ultimately I feel like a lot of these debates are very difficult to resolve. And they do come down to very fine, granular, individual experiences in your life as to how you then come to the determination as to what is right and what is wrong for you, the kind of life you want to live, the kind of life you want to create for yourself and for your family. And at the end of the day, that is why I think that it is so important that we have the kind of free society, that is avoids nationalistic rhetoric and arbitrary impositions on our freedom, that avoids arbitrary bans on pornography that aren't based on a real solid justification that is worth the cost, that comes not only to our intangible freedom, but in the creation of a state that can enforce those laws. And that is a cost that we've seen in the United States time and time again. Prohibition of alcohol, prohibition of drugs. It has led to a real demonstrable decrease in our freedom, to millions of people imprisoned and jailed, and to a worse country overall. So, it's not just about porn is good, my freedom, my freedom, my freedom. It's about creating a society where as many people can live the best life they can in accordance with their morality, in accordance with their own principles. That's what this country is about. And that's what I'm about.
Andrew?
So I want to take a second to just kind of use my closing argument time. Give a shout out to a few people who have been at Politically Provoked and have been base fans from the beginning, like Unrelated Coma and Based Moon. And many of these people, I'd like to thank you all for the support of the platform. And I'd also like to thank Destiny and Bastiat for mixing it up with us. I know that we're all assholes here, but we can all take it, right? We can all take it. We can all take the shit talking. We can deal with it. Getting to the actual closing here, when we're mixing this thing up, this really comes down to two different visions of morality. And we are able to demonstrate horrific negative side effects to this type of work. Opponents didn't really demonstrate anything, but instead continuously asked us to make some type of weird, bizarre baseline argument, almost a philosophical argument for why we think it's bad, rather than demonstrating the consequences of it, which is interesting because they're utilitarian consequentialists for the most part. So this is kind of the crux of where we get to. Bastiat's right. Did we resolve anything here? I don't know. Did we change any minds? Maybe we changed a few. And that's really the best that we can hope for. So thanks for mixing it up, and I hope we see you guys again.
All right, fascinating.
Yeah, I don't think we really figured out what our disagreements were or anything really. Because it seems like, I don't know, I'm curious why it ought to be illegal, and we got some vague reference to externalities, but I don't think that like negative externalities are enough to make a particular action illegal. I'm just rehashing everything we said. But yeah, it's like always, it's been fun.